The first step in generating synthetic test data messages is to first create a message definition of the file that we will be creating. We navigate to Data Dictionary, New Definition, select Files, the file name and file description. You can assign this to a specific application that you're working with, for example, payments engine. We can then link up or add a new schema for the file that we're creating. I'm going to select a new schema and what file type this schema is for. I'll then search for this schema, decide to trigger a new scan. While we create this definition, we will scan the schema using the selected file to create a definition of the message that we'll be creating. Click Finish. Go to our created definition. This will contain the information of our scanned schema. We can also manage and upgrade versions of this file with new schemas. To see more on that, see the knowledge base. Next step, create our message management data activity. We navigate to Data Activities, Activity Explorer, select the folder where we want to create our activity, add activity, and select message management. Give it a name, and this will load our message management activity. Add our components. The first will be definition that we created earlier. So select attach file definition and the version that we're working with. Our definition version will now be attached to our rule set. Our next step to attach a file rule set version, create a rule set that we can attach. We will be defining functions and values to use in our generation, along with any aspects of our message that we want to parameterize and calculations and conditions that we want to overlay onto the logic. Navigate to Data Rules, Rule Set Explorer, click on New Rule Set. We give this a name, a description, and we select the message definition and version. Click OK, and your rule set will be created. We can now open up our rule set to view the structure of your message that's been scanned in either tree, grid, or diagram view. You have the option to add further information, comments, or external links. For each within our rule set, we should decide what value it should take, or if it should be parameterized or excluded from our message generation. To set a generation rule, click the spanner icon. You can choose to add a new one, set or edit an existing one. Click the edit icon and our generation rules dialog will open. An existing function, this will be a default function based off the schema that was scanned and the validation rules. Within this, you are able to set the value or function, how many times this should occur, under what conditions. To edit any of these three values, click the blue edit button to the right hand side and Data Painter will open. There are a list of functions categorized by type and will synthetically generate a value based on the parameters set. You can also use data lists to query some sort of seed list inside test modeler in order to populate the values of your generated messages. To see more on seed lists, look at the knowledge base. Also use the concatenate button to chain together functions and static values for more complex outputs. Data references will allow you to reference for calculations and so on. The final piece you can also reference are you can set custom parameters that the user will input, and these can also be referenced. For example, we want a date function, a date between 11th of August to 22nd of August of 2022. Click OK, the new function assigned to populate when we generate our message. Our repeater to define how many times it should occur in our generation. Depending on the scan that's taken place, there may be a maximum number of occurrences without breaking the file's business rules. You can also set synthetic values. Conditions allow you to set multiple different generation functions. Depending on the conditions that are met, then a linked generation function will be applied. To apply multiple conditions, simply click on our generation rules, add to create a new generation rule on top of the existing ones. See the knowledge base on how to apply advanced generation functions. An alternative way in accelerating the creation of your data rule set is to apply global defaults. You simply navigate to configuration, defaults, can create a default function applied to your rule set. Define under what conditions, depending on the name, tag, or regex, and then which function should be used when that rule is applied. For example, if any tag contains email, apply the function that generates us a random email address. When we apply these global defaults, we simply click this button and select which ones we want to apply and click Apply Global Defaults. Each of our generation rules functions will be updated. We can also exclude elements from our generation. Yes, the specific selected will not be included. There will be a warning sign if it will break validation rules by excluding this element. We also have the ability to exclude based off a sample message. For example, if you have an existing message format, you can use a sample to exclude specific values. Simply click this button, upload the file that you want to compare to, click OK, and it will exclude that don't exist within that sample message. Lastly, the ability to parameterize. Do this through the expose in template toggle that exists, and you can also create parameters through user-defined variables to control aspects of the data that we're generating in two different ways when we run our final message generation. If we run our generation through a submit form, these parameters that we've defined will be exposed as an option in the form so the data requester can specifically set the value of some sort of function for each of those parameters. Alternatively, using a data model to drive the generation of our messages, we can model out key edge cases and variations that we would like to test for each of our defined parameters and use test modelers' optimization capabilities to generate a high coverage set of test files. Keep this concept in mind while defining your rule set and think about the system, varied data, and the key edge cases that we need to test properly. You've now configured the rule set for your generation.